Hey folks, welcome back to the Edupedia world, and I am Abhinay Gupta, and we are covering the topic that is the standards on auditing. Right? We have already covered a couple of lectures on the standards of auditing. I hope you are liking the videos, you are liking the lecture, and you are learning out of it. Right? Today we are making another attempt to demonstrate another standard to you, which is the SA 580, the written representation. Right? So the only topic under consideration for today's lecture would be SA 580. Now, when we talk about written representation, right, how many of you have actually seen a written representation? Presuming you're all CA final students, right, and that you are all going for your internship or your articleship or training, whatever name you give to it, right, you must have seen, if you are going on an audit, that your senior or your partner or your manager, whosoever it is, right, he has obtained a written representation. And if you people are working as an in charge on the client, like with the responsibility of handling the entire client, then you must have also obtained a written representation. Right? So those people who are actually going for the training, they are very familiar with this term. And whatever this essay says, right, whatever points we are going to discuss in this standard of auditing, they will be able to understand and accept those points. Why? Because knowingly or unknowingly they have been using the entire description of this essay, which is already attached to the entire procedure of the written representation that you obtain from the management in your practical scenario. Right? And for the dummy students, please listen to the video and try and understand what it is. I know you people must not have a practical experience, but okay, theoretically itself, you will understand what written representation means. So, when we start with the essay, what is the first thing we covered? We covered the scope and the objective of that standard. So let us go to the next slide, which is the scope and objective of SA 580. Right? So, I have quoted the scope. The scope is, the standard deals with the auditor's responsibility to obtain written representation from the management and, where appropriate, those charged with governance. The terminology used over here, from management and, where appropriate, those charged with governance, this is something that you will have to presume always whenever we use the term management with respect to SA 580. Right? Wherever we are talking about management, you need to understand that yes, we are talking about the appropriate management of that division for which you are taking the written representation, for that factor for which you are taking the written representation. Right? And the scope of this standard is basically your responsibility. The standard defines your responsibility as an auditor of a company, even as an article, right? When you go over there, right? Don't be disheartened with that. When you are going for the audit purpose specifically, then it is your responsibility to demand the written representation from the management. Why? Because there are various uses of written representation. First of all, it will define the responsibility of the management, that yes, preparing the financial statement, following the accounting policies, designing, implementing and maintaining the internal control, a lot of things, right? Whatever things are going on, whatever responsibilities are vested upon the management, they will have to declare it. Right? Everything is documented. Work not documented is work not done, is a famous line I have been hearing throughout my internship. Right? It is a famous proverb used in all the big fours. Work not documented is work not done. Because when you are actually auditing a good company, right, a listed level company, or in the process of listing, or an equivalently large company, right, and or if you are actually having an experience of the big four or something, you will know the importance of documentation as well. Normally in a day-to-day scenario, if you are working in a mediocre firm, documentation may not play a very important role. Right, you have those procedures of going and ticking on the client's invoice, check with red, green, different color pens and all. What we do is prepare a document. Your Excel sheet. Excel is everything for you in the audit. Everything has to be over there. If it's a PDF given by the management, attach it to your Excel sheet. Everything is there, right? So unless and until you have discussed something with the management agreed on some points, management has given you some proofs, given you certain documents, we don't care. Unless and until you get me in written as to what all things management has undertaken to do and what all things the management has actually provided and taken responsibility for, and a lot of other things, we will not accept it. Hence, that is the purpose of a written representation. That means you have to take it in writing, signed and stamped by the manager that yes, we undertake this declaration. And so this essay will define your responsibility for that purpose. And if we look at the objective, you have three basic objectives, right? Number one, obtain written representation about management's responsibility. Exactly what we were just talking about. That when you go for an audit, you know that yeah, there are certain preconditions for the audit. There are certain responsibilities that have been divided. Even when you prepare your audit report, there is a paragraph about the responsibilities of the management, and then there's a following paragraph about the responsibilities of the auditor. So you understand how important is the responsibility of the management. How do you define it? You define it into the written representation. Right? So this is one of the most important document that you take from the management. You have not taken a lease deed, you have not taken a bank document, you have not taken a FD certificate, a small FD certificate. Okay, for one moment that can be escaped. Escaped, I mean, obviously you will not escape it, but if you have not documented it very well, that can still be taken care of. But unless and until you have documented a written representation, what is it that you're going to write in your report? How do you support your report when you write the paragraph, management's responsibility? So to support that paragraph in your audit report, you will have to have a written representation from the management whereby the management declares the entire responsibility that the management undertakes. Clear? You understand the point? Why we need it? What is the reference? Okay. The next responsibility is to obtain a written representation to support the other audit evidences. So basically you know that your audit evidence is the prime important thing in your audit. Unless and until you have an evidence supporting any of your statement, right, you cannot prove it to be correct. So whenever you want to arrive at a conclusion for something, you will need a supporting audit evidence for that. Right? So even your written representations are in some context an audit evidence, right? But they are not a conclusive audit evidence. Basically in your audit you don't consider any evidence to be conclusive, right? All the evidence can be, even if 1%, it can be persuasive. So declaring any evidence to be a conclusive evidence is a very difficult task in your audit. Right? And written representation can never be conclusive. Why? Because it is a declaration given by management. Now, for example, if you have attained an audit evidence, right, relating to something, for example, you have a bank statement, right? You have a lot of things, a lot of details about the bank overdraft, the transactions during the year, the FDs that you have, the foreign currency loan that you have, right? All the other documents and deeds. Those are one separate thing. And now when you go to the management, right, you have a detail of 3 banks and management gives you a declaration, okay, we have an account in 3 different banks only, and you say, okay, management has given a declaration, we have seen the 3 different banks, okay, we close the account. No, there is a possibility that management has a fourth account and management does not disclose it, right? So how do you support the completeness assertion when you are checking the bank? You never know how many bank accounts the company has. You will have to check, right? If management says no, we have one in Kotak Mahindra, one in PNB, and one is in the HDFC Bank, right, or one is in the Standard Chartered Bank, or the Royal Bank of Scotland, RBS, whatever it is, right? You say, okay, give me the documents, give me everything, give me the detail, give me the schedule of payment, schedule of loan, your FDs and everything. You take all the document, you document everything and done. But how do you verify the assertion completeness, that you have checked the entire banks completely? You go back to your cash, bank balances, everything, all those things are coming from there. Management is giving you all the data, right? So you will have to do your procedures, your test of details and test of controls and everything to check it. That is a separate issue, separate thing, right? Along with it, okay, I'm not getting into the detail, but if you want to check the bank, you have a lot of ways. Going through the minute books and the transactions and everything, the legal expenditures, there are a lot of things, right? We'll discuss about it later. What you need to understand is that, okay, in this position you take a management representation, that yes, all the banks known to you where you have an account, you have given me the declaration, you have given me the bank account details and everything, and we are auditing it. That is the kind of written representation that we're talking about when we say that the written representation would support your other audit evidences, right? So when you are performing an audit, specifically, and you have obtained an evidence, but still you are not confirmed about some or the other assertion, then to confirm that assertion you take a representation from the management, and that representation will be a supporting evidence but will never be a conclusive evidence. Right? So you can never say, okay, for the banks have taken the written representation from the management that all the bank accounts are correct, all the FDs are correct, all the interest have been paid, all the loans, the installments and interest are being paid on time and everything. We have taken a management representation, management says it's done, and we trust the management, and okay, the account is closed. You cannot do that, right? Whatever the management says, if you accept it, then why do you go to the management? Tell him to print the audit report and send it to you. You just sign it. Right? That is why we say management's representation letter is never a conclusive evidence. It can be used as a supporting evidence but not as an evidence on its own. Right? Then you have to respond appropriately to the written representation, whether received or not. That means if you have received a written representation from the management, how do you respond to that written representation is an objective of this standard. Or if there is a situation where you have called for a written representation but you did not receive any, there may be any reason why the management denied the written representation or agreed that they will give it but they did not give it finally. Delay, and at the end, okay, let's wind it up and close. The MD is not here, we cannot sign it, and this, that. Whatever is the issue. Right? Ultimately, if you do not receive a written representation, then what are the actions that you will take? What are the procedures that you will follow? What are the alternate procedures that you will follow? That is the objective of this essay. This standard defines the three objectives over here. Obtain written representation about management's responsibility. Number one, whatever is the responsibility, take it in written, signed, documented with you. That if I'm stuck anywhere, this is the responsibility of the management. If they ask me to do any of these tasks, I'll show it to them that this is your responsibility and not mine. So please complete the task and give it to me. Second, you have some audit evidences, you want to further support it, then you go for the management representation later for that. Or if there is any specific assertion you want to confirm, and other things, other checkings at your level, whatever you could do, you have done, but there's something that may, suppose, complement an assertion that, okay, yes, further evidence, it is correct. You can take the management representation letter. Right? And there are other situations where you want a representation letter and you demand it, and if you received it, what are you supposed to do with it? And if you do not receive it, how are you supposed to react at that? Right? So this is all that we will understand in this standard. Although we are just in the beginning of the standard, but we have discussed a lot already. Right? This standard is not a huge standard, but all you need to know is you need to understand. Right? Because when you get a question in the examination, it is not only about the objectives in this. You don't get a direct question, please quote the objective, quote the scope, quote the management responsibility. No. You get a case study based question where you have to apply this standard and say that according to this standard, this was our responsibility. Yes, we have read in the standard, you'll give the reference to the standard, you'll give the reference to the objective, and you'll say that no, we need a representation letter for your responsibility. That is a mandate that has been specified by SA 580. That is how you have to use these essay in your examinations. Right? Now there's also one definition that the standard has provided us with, which is the definition of the written representation. So as per the definition, it is a quoted text, right? So please don't doubt it. So it says, written representation, a written statement by management provided to the auditor to confirm certain matters or to support other audit evidences. Written representation in this context do not include the financial statement, the assertions therein, or supporting books and records. Simple, straight. That means this definition covers your objective and also clarifies what is not a written representation. Right? What was your objective? To confirm the management's responsibilities. So over here you have a statement that management provide to the auditor to confirm certain matters. What is it confirming? It is confirming the responsibilities of the management. Second, or to support other audit evidences, exactly the objective number 2. The written representation is taken to support the audit evidences. The third one is not included over here because the third one is not a part of written representation. It is talking about your responsibility. What do you do? How do you react to a written representation? right? So the first two objectives covered in the first statement. Then it says that the financial statements, the assertions, the supporting books, records, all these things that the management gives, you cannot consider it to be a management representation letter, right? It is just the record, it is just the data, a raw data that the management is providing you, right? Financial statement, although it has been adopted by the board in the board meeting, it is not a written representation. It is the data based on which you will do the audit, and for that, to support elements inside that, you will take a written representation, right? Okay, so I guess the definition, now you remember the definition and you can write it. So whenever you get and you need to mention anything about the written representation and this SA, please remember to quote the entire definition over there, because when you quote this definition, what happens is your explanation part comes to an end. You don't need to again go ahead with 2 paragraphs to explain what written representation is. If you have given a quote, the entire definition, that's it. You cut short your answer, you save your time, and still you get the full marks in the answer. Otherwise, if you don't remember this, you go on to write 2 paragraphs to explain written representation, you beat around the bush, and then comes to somewhere close to written representation, that can still be dangerous, and that is wasting a lot of time in thinking and in writing over there. So you need to play smart when you are answering the questions, right? Because basically whenever you go for your examination, I'm telling you, people who are watching these videos, maybe some of you have given your exams already, some of you will be giving it for the first time in future. So remember that the questions that you get, right, they're basically divided into 4 to 8 marks. 8 marks questions are very rare. It is 4 marks question. The first question number 1 is 20 marks, so 5 marks, or even you can get 4 marks, 5 questions over there. The PE, you get 4 marks each for 16 marks. The CARO, the report, everywhere, right? You very rare questions are there where you get 8 mark questions, otherwise it is generally 4. But although the question number, right, the marks allotted to a question is 4, the content remains the same. You cannot cut short the content, because otherwise you won't score 4, right? So the paper becomes hell lengthy, and then you lose time in the examination, and at the end you leave 8 to 10 to 15 to 20 mark question. Why? Because you did not have time to attempt. Because in the previous question you went on writing, because audit is a paper where you know everything. This is the question, this is the case, I know this is what we are going to use, this is what we are going to do. But there is hell lot of things that you will be knowing, and you will then think, if I go to write all these things over here, I would have to just flip pages for this one answer. For 4 marks, do I fill up 4 to 5 sheets? No, I won't. You'll have to be very judicious with the number of words that you use. So that is why in those places, this is a trick I'm giving it to you. Learn the definitions, because when you write the definition, your work is done. You don't have to further explain it. The definition within quotes, cut, and you are done. Move on to answer the relevant question instead of beating around the bush, right? So the definition is important. Next, our first part of the standard is over. Now we move on to the requirement part, right? You know that the essay is divided into 3 parts: objectives, scope, requirement, and the application material, right? Application material actually is the very detailed aspect. If you look at the documents and the data provided by your institute, right, either you have the study material in your hand, or if you go to the website and download individual essay, right, then you will find even this essay is a long essay. You will have a lot of pages for this essay as well, right? So you will have somewhere around 15-16 pages even for this essay, whereas you think the content, it is not even worth 2 pages. So what is there in that 15 page is the application material. Basically you have a lot of content in the application material. That is to widen your scope, to help you understand. Illustrations and everything are provided over there, right? The connect and everything, the things that I'm explaining, right, these things will actually form part of the application material. And the content that you need to write for this standard in the examination will be basically based in the objective and the requirement section. Application is for understanding, right? So for the requirements, the first thing that we see in the requirement is the management's responsibility. right? What is the responsibility of the management as per this standard, right? And for that, before that, what you need to remember is whenever you go ahead to ask for a written representation from the management, you will have to see that the management to whom you approach for any specific written representation, they should have the appropriate responsibility for the financial statement, and they should have the knowledge of the matter that you are approaching them with, right? That is very important, that you have to approach the relevant management, because management does not mean Mr. A, right? Mr. Amit is there in the office, he is managing your audit, everything. You just approach him and say, hey, you are the management, give me this. No. For different things, you may have to approach the heads of different department. If you need something related to the purchase, you can't go and ask a declaration or the representation from a finance head, right? For purchase is a separate department. Go and ask from the purchase head, procurement head, right? So forget about that now. Now we come back to the management's responsibility. So when we talk about management's responsibility, the first thing we need to discuss is the preparation of the financial statement. So you all know, we have discussed it a lot of time, that preparation of the financial statement is always a responsibility of the management, right? Even when you talk about the other standards, right, like the standard on related services, which is SRS 4410, the name is engagement to compile financial statement. So over there you are taking up responsibility to compile the financial statement, but when you read that essay, when we'll come to that essay, you will understand that it is not your responsibility. You will not check the principles, the policies applied, the data, the figures, nothing. Whatever is provided by the management, you just apply your accountancy knowledge and compile it. That is it. Only compilation. The mere clerical work of compiling, nothing. No applying the brain, no going to the documents, no checking, no verifying anything. Because again, you remember that preparation of financial statement is the responsibility of the management. And when you are undertaking an engagement of compilation, you are not going there as an auditor of the company. Auditor cannot compile the financial statement. You are going to the company as a compiler, as an accountant, right? That is a different service that you are providing. So preparation of financial statement is always the responsibility of the management. So what you need to see is that when you receive a financial statement, you will ask the management, give me a written representation that you have fulfilled your responsibility for preparing it. And preparing it, not just preparing it with respect to the applicable financial reporting framework, whatever it is. Maybe Companies Act 2013, maybe Schedule 6, maybe the standards, maybe anything. For the Banking Regulation Act, Insurance Act, SEBI, WEBI, whatever it is. Whatever is the financial reporting framework that we will be referring to, please make sure that the financial statements are prepared based on those financial reporting framework. Right? And if at some place it is relevant for a fair presentation, which may be set out by your description in the engagement letter, right? You must have specified in the engagement letter that the fair presentation is your task. Then as per the applicable FRF, right, and their fair presentation. So that is the responsibility of the management, and when they provide you with the financial statement, they have fulfilled their responsibility, is the declaration that they will give, right? Next you have information provided and completeness of transactions. So you will take a written representation from the management that whatever information they have provided, right, is correct. Or okay, if it is not correct, then they have at least provided all the information that you required, right? In the engagement letter, you must have specified that, yeah, these are the information that we need. You must give us the access to all the information, to all the personals, all the data, all the document. This is the precondition, if you remember, right? So it is provided in the engagement letter that you should be loaded with relevant information and access, right, which is agreed in the audit engagement. So you will take a written representation that the management is allowing you for all those things, right? Plus you will also ask the management, please confirm in the written representation that the transactions, all the transactions have been actually recorded in either your SAP, Oracle, whatever ERP you're using, whatever database you're using, you have recorded all the transactions over there, and those transactions are very well reflected in the financial statements as well. It is not just relevant that you have recorded it. You have also used it while preparing the financial statement. Right? That is your responsibility. That you will take such a written representation from the management. Clear with it? Right. Now we have the next responsibility, which is the description of management's responsibilities in a written representation. So it is your responsibility to see that the representation letter that you are taking from the management, right, they describe the responsibilities of the management in the same manner that you have asked the manager to describe while you were preparing the engagement letter. So whatever is mentioned in the engagement letter, when you say that, okay, these are your responsibilities, please agree to your responsibilities, and then the management says, okay, we agree to our responsibility, but you don't agree to that agreement. What you say, please give me a written representation, and then it will be your responsibility to see whether such a written representation is received and whether it is in conformity with what you have decided in your engagement letter while signing the engagement, right, when there are terms and conditions of the engagement, right. Now the last requirement is from the management's responsibility point is the other written representation. Now what do you mean by other written representation? Yes, in the above three requirements, what we have seen is the written representation about their responsibility. That yeah, we'll prepare the financial statement, we'll give you all the information, we'll completely record all the transactions, all those things that we have agreed in the engagement, right, while signing the engagement letter, we will fulfill all of them. Those things have already been given. There will be a written representation letter from the management. All those points will be included. But now, as per some other standard of auditing, right, or when you are going on performing your work and you come across some situation or certain task where you think that, okay, for this specific thing, I want a further evidence or I want a confirmation from the management, and for the same, you request the management, please give me a confirmation that this is okay, or you have fulfilled these facts. Right, for example, while sending the debtor confirmation, right, again you will take a management representation. Have you given me all the list? Have you, like, you have given me all the list, and all those people whom we wanted the representation or the confirmation to be floated, they have been floated very well. You are taking the follow-up and everything, whatever it is, whatever, right? If with respect to any other standard, if you need any other written representation from the management, you will take it. That is the meaning of the other representation, right? So that was the first requirement, the management's responsibility. Beyond this, you have a little more topic remaining in this standard, right? But we will cover up those topics in the next lecture. So for now, this is a lot of things that you have had for your brain. Please keep it in, learn it, understand it, right? Because learning this statement, this standard is not a difficult task. It is a very small standard. Learn the meaning, the definition of written representation, the objectives of where is it used, and this requirement. It is a flow, it is a sync, and in totality, if you think at the end of the lecture, there is a very little thing that we concluded. Yeah, blot, 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 blot. These are the 5 bullet points. That is it, right? But you have seen it from various different angles. And people who are actually going for internship, the students who are a part of a firm as a trainee, as an article, they will be able to connect with the standard more closely. And the others who are actually going for your dummy classes, when I say dummy classes, means sitting at home and watching these videos. You, although you have not seen a management representation letter, but with this I think you get an idea of what a representation letter is. Now all you need to do is go on Google and find a format or a sample of a management representation letter, and you can see that. Okay with that? So with this we come to an end to this lecture, and in the next class we will complete this standard and start with some other standard as well. So until then, this is Abhinay Gupta signing off. Stay tuned for the next lecture. Thank you. Bye-bye.